Uh, let's create a BOSH release with you. And I've chosen traffic. Why? Because it's it's a reverse proxy, primarily configurable through REST API, and it's developed in France, Cocorico. And its v3 has been out for 2 weeks on 29th April. And that was also the very first BOSH release I've authored back in 2017 when I was creating my first BOSH training for the first time and delivering it to my customer. So good memories. What's the plan today? We're going to initialize a new BOSH release. We are going to bring some binaries in. We're going to create a new package, create a new job. And we are going to create a dev release, deploy, and test. Why the hell? The final goal behind all that is what? Is to run workloads. Small, medium, large, in the cloud. And as virtual machines. Operated by a robot. And the robot is called BOSH. So what do we mean, actually, by a workload? It's a Unix daemon, actually, and running on a Linux VM, built from source code, or just brought as a binary, which has to be statically linked in order to survive OS upgrades. So a daemon with its config files and detailed setup for starting it. It's pretty generic, actually. And if you guys have done that previously 25 years ago like I did, it's pretty much like configure, make, install we were doing with Apache source code for deploying HTTPDs on bare metal machines. But BOSH integrates that and brings a lot of automation help with that for managing such workloads, unless you provide it with a BOSH release. So that's the point. So what's the process? Initialize the release, bring some binaries into a file named blobs.yaml, and source code into a src subfolder of the BOSH release, an archive or compile those. This will happen inside the packages subdirectory of the BOSH release. And configure and run a daemon. This will happen in the jobs subdirectory. Snapshot the results and create a dev release. We'll see what it is. Upload it to the director and deploy. Let's start with the beginning. So we initialize the BOSH release. We do this step by step. We first create a directory, a traffic-free BOSH release, right? We go into there and we initialize the release with this BOSH init release command --git. It creates that structure, folder structure, and we don't forget the --git because it's very useful. It brings this .git ignore file that is very useful later on. And we can see this structure with config, the blobs YAML file, the src, where we can put source code, packages, and jobs subfolder. And we also see a final YAML config. What is that? We are going to edit it right away because that's the first setting we want to set. It's the name of the BOSH release. We see that, and we don't want it to be, we want that instead, because it's not the name of the directory. Our BOSH release has to be named traffic3, just that. Right. Let's continue. And now we need to bring some binaries in and source code possibly, but there we will choose the binaries. We provide blobs for that, but binaries don't go to Git. Whether they are here for bringing source code in a targzip archive or a zipped binary, they don't go to Git. There is a release blob store for that. And it's a storage for blobs. Blobs means binary large objects. Because Git is done for text files, as you know, primarily. So that's why BOSH has this design with the Git and the blob store, which are just two sides of the same coin, actually. They are really tied together and just like dual space for the people who have done math. And so we have this repo and the blob store. And on the repo side, we have a Git technology. On the blob store is Amazon S3 or Google Cloud Storage, or some other options. I don't go into the details. And let's bring our traffic binary as a blob. we have our folder structure. We just first download the blob. It's not very interesting. It's a curl for downloading the binary, some archive. We unarchive with tar.x, and then we shrink the size of the binary, the executable binary with gzip strings -9, the maximum one. And what's interesting is to add that blob with that command, the BOSH add blob command. And there, it's going to populate this blob's YAML file. And at first, it just looks like this. It's an empty dictionary of YAML. There's nothing, no blobs. And once we add it, it becomes that. And we can see that the final argument, the second argument to BOSH add blob, is the virtual path. And that's how it's going to look like to BOSH. And it appears in the blob's YAML file. We can see also there is the file size of the blob and some fingerprints, very precise fingerprints, so that we know exactly what binary we bring in. Let's continue because we are running out of time for sure. We won't go into those details. That's for later on. The slides are on the site, on the website. We create the traffic package. So we BOSH generate package traffic, and it creates those files. Then we edit the spec, and we find such content into the file with the name of the package. We just say that we have one file we care about, which is the blob which we have just declared and added to the BOSH release. We also edit the packaging script. And the packaging script is at first an empty script with just that. And we modify it to get this. And it's very simple. We just create the target binary directory. We extract the shrinked binary in there, and we make sure it is executable. So simple. There are some tricks. We won't go into the. This is a lightning talk. And the relation between package and blob is that on the top you have the blob with the virtual path. We use it in the spec to say that we grab this to feed it to the packaging script that uses it to extract the binary and make it available for running our Unix daemon. And we won't go into those details. That's a lightning talk. We configure and run the daemon then. That's the job. What's the job here? It's a service. It's a Unix daemon. It's supposed to run 24/7. It's configured with Ruby ERB templates. These templates are listed into a spec YAML file. It also lists the configuration properties. We're going to see that. We must use BPM, BOSH Process Manager. If you see any release not doing that, get very angry. Most of them don't do that, actually. No, the most common one are using BOSH Process Manager, hopefully. So this explains how to run the Unix daemon, and it happens in this bpm.yaml config file. We are going to see it right away. So we create the traffic job. We BOSH generate job traffic, and it creates those files under the jobs subdirectory. And we edit the spec. We find this in there, and we modify this because we want to say that this job is requiring the traffic package, and we declare two config files, the BPM config file and the traffic config file, so that our daemon is properly configured. Let's continue. And we have a monet file to create. At first, it's just empty, just void, and we pull in there some boilerplate code that you can find at this address on the website. I've done the documentation. And with just minor edits to say that it's not whatever daemon, it's a traffic daemon. Right, and we create this BPM description of the process to be run, And here we just name the process traffic, and we explain that the executable is the binary we've just extracted from within the packaging script. And we provide one arg, which is the config file. And the config file is that one we have declared as in ARB template right before. And at the end, we explain that we allow traffic to bind to privileged ports with this net bind service capability. And it's very useful because we don't need it to run as root primarily. 1 minute. So let's continue. We configure traffic, we create the directory, we bring some sample config, and we edit it. I'm not providing the whole content of the config file, but just to say we add one property, one example log level, the log level of this daemon. And with this log level being injected as ERB property into the template, we go back to the spec of the job, and we have this content, and we edit it to declare this very log level property. Right, and we have a description and a default value. That's great. The community, the Ansible community is looking for that for years. They don't have it. So next, we snapshot the result into a dev release. We put all the stuff in Git. We create the release. It spits a lot of junk, but there is something interesting there, which is very small, but it's that. It's a version 0 plus dev.1 because it's a dev release. That's the marker for saying it's a dev release. It's not a final one. And there is a commit hash. There is actually a small relation with the commit that we have done. That's why it was required right before. And next, we upload it to the director. First, we check that we are connected to a director with that kind of command. We get 4 environment variables. I'm just done. I'm just done. And we upload the release. It gets fine. And then we create a default deployment. It's quite complicated. I won't go into the details. And we deploy with BOSH deploy. And it spits that. And it's a success. Oh, my God. And we are here to answer all your questions on the Slack channel.